Hello, my name's Lionel Digby, and I just want to tell you about how I brought rock and roll to the southwest, and in particular Torquay Town Hall. It all began way back in the 50s when I was 18. I joined the army, the household cavalry, the lifeguards to be precise, and I went to London and served at Knightsbridge Barracks. And I used to go to the jazz clubs because in the early 50s it was jazz. By the mid 50s rock and roll was coming in, the records were coming in from America, and the Two Eyes Coffee Bar in London was the birthplace of rock and roll in this country, in Great Britain. And big stars started there playing in the cellar. Cliff Richard and the Shadows, Tommy Steele, Swimming Lord Such, Marty Wilde, Joe Brown, Adam Faith. And I came back home to Torquay in 1956, and it was nothing happening in Torquay, very dull. And I met up with Johnny Harris from Brixham, who had just come out of the army, playing in a band, army band, and he put a little group together called the Johnny Harris Combo. And they'd been rehearsing but had nowhere to play. So I said, right, well, okay. So I went out to find a hall, and I found the Co-op Hall in the back streets of Torquay, Union Street. And I booked it on the only day available on a Tuesday, which is not normally a dance night. Most dance nights are Fridays and Saturdays. And we opened it up in February 1957, and it was a massive success. We then took the Saturday night when it became available, and we ran 2 nights a week, Tuesdays and Saturdays. We also then moved to the Badminton Hall in Paynton, which was the second appearance of the combo. Bands appearing from all over the West Country were forming, and we brought them into the Co-op Hall where they appeared, and in my other venues that I got around the West Country. And then I started to get interest in the big names that were coming available. So I booked the Torquay Town Hall, which could hold on a good night 1,000, 1,500, and you could even squeeze 2,000 in sometimes. And that's how it all started.
I'm Tony Brinsley, bass guitar player with the Sixth Sense primarily. We were a band that Lionel used to manage, I think that's fair to say. We played throughout the southwest in different venues that he organised, but primarily the Torquay Town Hall, which I think was the premier music venue in the southwest at the time. Just about all the top acts that were touring played there. We played with many of them. The first time The Who played there was particularly memorable. We shared a dressing room with the various band members. It was at the height of Keith Moon's extravagant behaviour, I think fair to say, and we experienced it all. In fact, I remember their Roku saying to us before the show, make sure you get every bit of your equipment off the stage prior to The Who going on, because they wouldn't be responsible for any of it. They tended to smash up their own equipment, and they didn't want us to be involved in that as well.
Oh, electrifying really. I mean, they were loads of energy. You get Keith Moon on the drums just going absolutely so fast in his drums, and they put him on a rostrum. When they come, the roadies had the mobile rostrum they built, and his drum kit was up sort of on the level of the rest of the band's heads. And on the finale, he'd just stand up and push all his drums off the rostrum.
My memory of the dressing room with them was seeing the blisters and the cuts on their hands, especially with Keith Moon's blisters from playing drums. And they didn't notice it. They just didn't seem to notice it at all. But they were great guys, and they were good times. We played with them, I think, once or twice. Hi everybody, my name's Lee Brown. I used to be the guitar player for the Hunters. But the Town Hall itself was quite an amazing place to play. It was the centre of Torquay, centre of the southwest really, I think, but mainly Torquay residents really appreciated it. It was always packed.
My name's David Jones, and I used to work for Lionel Digby.
Hello, Davey.
Yeah, I first met you down at the Esplanade in Paynton. which is now the on the green.
That's great, yeah.
Yeah, and you used to run beat nights on a Wednesday and a Saturday night. The guy who normally put the records on in between the breaks and in between the bands going on had gone missing, and you asked me to put on some records in between the breaks.
And that really started you off as a DJ?
Yeah, that's right. I did that for a couple of years for you down there, and then moved across to Torquay and took up a residency in the Empire Ballroom.
That's great, and you were there as Davy Jones' locker?
That's right.
The town hall was, as I say, I think it was a unique venue. Not only to play there, the atmosphere was wonderful, particularly with the bigger acts because the place was full. But actually, whenever there was a show there, I would go along, part of Lionel's team, if you like. A bouncing floor. It still has that floor. And when the band is playing and the crowd is dancing with it, the whole place bounces, the whole floor bounces, and it's just a fantastic feeling.
Nobody would pay, of course.
The public did.
The public did, but the standard thing was, is Lionel in? I needed to give him a message. And then we all would go.
I'm Guy Henderson, I'm the chief reporter from the Herald Express.
Yeah, my name's Kevin Dixon. I'm a local historian and I sort of work in health and social care.
Now, back in the 1970s, Kevin, we used to frequent this place quite a lot, didn't we?
Very much so.
There were a lot of gigs played here, a lot of the biggest bands in the country, and some world famous names played here. So, I mean, we used to come here quite a lot, Kev, didn't we? With our mutual friend Paul, saw a lot of bands here. I remember one spell, it would have been July 1978, when just over the course of a couple of weeks, they put on The Clash here, they put on The Jam, and in between a band called Magazine. It was an amazing couple of weeks.
I'm always asked about the Sex Pistols, what happened? Why didn't they appear in Torquay? They were due to appear in Torquay in October 1976 at the 400 Ballroom. I then received a phone call from their manager, Malcolm McCallum, saying could he change the date. He wanted to cancel all the single dates that they had around the country and put together a national tour in December. And he'd like to do the Sex Pistols date on the 22nd of December in place of the October date. After doing 3 dates, the whole tour was scrapped, and because of the TV interview with Bill Grundy, in which the bad language, it just got to the situation. He was sacked, Bill Grundy, for it. Everybody started saying, well, they didn't want them at their venues. So the tour collapsed all over the country. What can I say? So they never came.
And you also got a lot of interaction with the bands back in those days. The fans these days are very distant from the artists. They're miles away from them, and there's no chance of bumping into them. But I remember a band called The Lurkers came and played here. Very, very good, sound, solid pub rock punk band, and we all went and had a pint with them downstairs afterwards. The Jam were very, very approachable. I mean, Paul Weller, Bruce Foxton came out afterwards signing autographs. I think we all had a pint with them as well.
Nearly every band actually came to Torquay, though it was part of that Lionel Digby thing where he invited everybody down, and for somebody that was like 17, 18, 19 at the time, it was incredibly exciting. The whole thing, I mean, these were people you'd seen on Top of the Pops, or you'd seen in the Melody Maker or the New Musical Express, those kind of newspapers and magazines, and you just really wanted to see them. You'd saved your money, you'd bought the albums, you'd looked at the pictures on the albums, and which were artwork in itself.
Well, hi, I'm Becky Nuttall. I'm a Torbay artist and poet. I've always lived in Torbay, always lived in Brixham. So Torquay Town Hall was the place that we went to hear music. And I saw David Bowie in 1973 when he was on his Ziggy Stardust tour. And that's the one that ended at Hammersmith, where he said the band has broken up, which came as a huge shock to a lot of people. But so it was in July 1973. I was just before my 16th birthday, just left school, just done my O-levels, and went with a load of other friends to see him.
It was part of the Mel Bush tour, David Bowie national tour, and Mel Bush asked me to organise it, and so I did. When I did that for national tours, I got a percentage for doing it. It was 2 gigs. He did 2 in one evening. We had one crowd in, and it sold out. It sold out within a week, months beforehand. As soon as it went on news that he was appearing there, both houses sold out.
What I remember most about it was I went with friends who were quite a bit older than me, and one of them knew the bouncers, the security on the door, and they managed to get us to the front of the queue. Although we had tickets, we were ushered in. There were about 6 of us, but they gave us what they said were the best seats in the house, which is the balcony at the back. But when you're 15, obviously, 15 coming on 16, I wanted to be down the front. I wanted to be down the front with all the other 16-year-olds going nuts. I got into right at the beginning on Space Oddity and Hunky Dory, and he did play Space Oddity and all those seminal songs. I remember him, the costume changes, so all those iconic costumes that he wore on that tour, and the band were just incredible. So he did the set that you'd want to hear if you went to see David. And it was Aladdin Sane that just come out, so he did do some of Aladdin Sane. So he did a really good he did a really good set.
Most of the guys that appeared at the town hall were absolutely diamond geezers, but there were obviously 1 or 2 prima donnas, and I remember the first one was Peter and Gordon when they came to the town hall. I was due to put them on stage, and I went up to their changing room to put them on, and Peter Asher said, "I'm not going on." I said, "Why? What's the matter?" He said, "There isn't enough stage lighting." And I said, "Well, how do you mean?" He says, "Well, I want spotlights." I said, "Well, I'm sorry." I said, "All we've got is the two footlights that we've got, 2 large old-fashioned red footlights." He said, "Well, I'm not going on." I said, "Well, you haven't been paid," hence he went on.
On that particular night,
That's
taken at Torquay Town Hall. That's Peter Asher and
Gordon Waller.
Gordon Waller, and the good-looking chap in the middle is yours truly.
Yes, hello, my name is Barry Privet. I was a keyboard player with The Sixth Sense and later on with Indiana Highway, which was a 7-piece soul band. Now, The Sixth Sense used to play regularly at the town hall, but not always under the name of The Sixth Sense. The reason that was we used to go out doing gigs, and when we only got paid £20 or £30 for the whole band, and we shared it between us, there was no money left to pay Lionel his commission. So we used to play at the town hall free of charge to cover the commission. However, because our name appeared quite regularly on the notice boards or advertising boards, we went under different names sometimes, and my favourite name was Felicity Bucket's Imaginary Menagerie. Another band we played, you said about audience participation, was when we played with the Equals, and we did Baby Come Back. We played before they came on and got a rapturous applause for it, and they didn't, but they were very good. Of course, it was Eddie Grant was their main man, who went on to become a solo artist. And the highway was singer, trumpet, tenor sax, alto sax, drums, guitar, bass and keyboard. And we played all just soul music, and it was a very good band. In fact, we made an EP, as it's called now, there, which is extended play, which is like a single but with 4 tracks on it. I think we sold about 20 or 30 of them, which was quite successful at the time. Hang on, Lionel, I'm just finishing. Now, I think most of them now have been melted down and used as flower pots. I've done that. Thank you.
One of the first up-and-coming stars to appear at the Co-op Hall in the early days, in the 1957, was Screaming Lord Sutch, which came down with the Two Eyes Showcase touring package show, which had a number of sort of minor artists that appeared at the Two Eyes Coffee Bar, and Dave was just on the bill after having all the publicity in the national papers, appearing with his long hair and horns and screaming at the audience. That's when I first met Dave in 1957. We became quite good friends, and over the years he came back to Torquay, he played the Torquay Town Hall. He was always an act you could book and would always get a good crowd for. People would come to see him. He was such a good entertainer. It was such good fun. We had some marvellous pranks, especially when he started doing his canvassing for a Monster Raving Loony Party. Oh, they were some funny times there, out on the canvassing. But sadly, Dave's no longer with us. It's a pity, really, because he would have been a good person today to be on chat shows. By 1982, it wasn't rock and roll anymore. I wasn't enjoying the punk scene. The only punk band that I really liked was the Undertones, which became quite well known through John Peel plugging them, and they were quite good. I did enjoy them. And of course, there were the new wave bands, which I don't consider punk, like Police and that. They were okay, but the general run-of-the-mill punk bands wasn't my style anymore, and I moved on. So I changed direction, so I gave up the music business and went into the costume hire business and built that up to mainly a military costume hire business, working on big TV and film productions such as Foyle's War, King's Speech, Tom Hardy's Legends, no end of TV programmes and film productions supplying military uniforms. In 2020, I gave up the costume hire business. I sold the whole business and stock to a big film company, and that was after 40 years of working on the television and film and theatre circuits. And I'm now moving on to do something different, so watch this space.